Sure. My name is Jonathan Maxson out of Washington, D.C. I'm a certified recovery coach and life coach.
So welcome.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here.
It's great to be here.
I love what you do, recovery coaching and working with clients on that sort of wraparound basis outside of therapy and treatment. I'm just so excited about having recovery coaches on, so I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so much of what I believe in terms of that phrase is kind of overused, recovery coaching or peer support specialist, that sort of thing is like so either overused or underused because there's so much more to it than just being a bodyguard.
Yeah.
It is hours and hours of getting to know somebody, to individualize a plan,
Yep.
to find out what works for them, what makes them work,
Yeah.
what turns them on, what turns them off.
Yeah.
How can we get to your heart and bypass your brain?
Yeah.
That's my goal.
I
with
love-
anybody I work with.
Yeah, I love working with coaches. I think it's an integral, imperative, incredible part of the continuum of care. But let's start from the beginning. Where
Sure.
are you from? Where are you living now? What are you doing?
I'm a
professionally?
Washington, D.C. guy. Been in Washington since undergraduate and came to Washington for graduate school. Dropped out of graduate school after 2 years and said, I want to start a business. And I did. And I was in the seafood business for 22 years,
Wow.
importing and exporting seafood, and got clean and sober in November of 1987. And it's been a long time. In 2010, short form, because I'm a good, bad example, is what I call myself, is I had a terrible motorcycle accident followed by a brutal car accident. Broke everything on the right side of my body and got addicted to painkillers, prescription painkillers. So I was one of the tragedies of the 2000s of that. And went out and got clean and sober about 9 years ago out in Malibu, California.
Wow,
And
congratulations.
my life has just been an absolute magic show ever since. Got into this field about 7 years ago.
So what really drew you to doing what you do now?
For so many years, my life was about profit margins, answering to a board, buying for one price, selling for another price, and really was getting no meaning out of life. And a friend of mine was with me and came with me to a 12-step meeting that coincidentally they asked me to lead. And she says, you have so much passion for this. Isn't there any way you can do something with it? And I started exploring and started doing a lot of coursework and building up CEUs and doing college coursework and et cetera, and started to build a name, a reputation. And I've aligned with a wonderful company, Recovery Care Partner out of Washington, D.C. There's only 5 of us, and we act very quietly, very discreetly, and we do really quality work.
Has it been hard to sort of find your way in that niche in the overall recovery community and the treatment community? What have been some challenges?
The biggest challenge was my being naive going into it, thinking it was all going to be just love and peace,
Yeah.
and we're all in this thing together.
Yeah.
We're all going to help each other,
Yeah.
and it's not like that. It's
Yeah.
like any other business that deals with human beings.
Yeah.
And so I always approach it first is that I'm dealing with a human being, and business has got to come second because there are lives on the line. There's psychosocial issues that come up all the time with people. So I've got to put that in front of profit margin.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you say is your biggest sort of passion? I mean, I know coaching, helping people, recovery, but within the community of recovery and treatment centers, what are you really passionate about in the work?
I am passionate about working with the families from that first phone call, that anxious first phone call. What do I do with my son, my daughter, my husband, my wife? And they're scared to death.
Yeah.
To give them hope, to calm them down, to give them a reason to keep listening and to keep asking questions. I use a lot of motivational interviewing techniques in order to get good answers so that I can give you the best advice. And I look at treatment centers, and I've toured hundreds, not hundreds, but dozens and dozens of treatment centers to find out who does what kind of work, what do they do, what are they good at, how many people are they seeing, how busy are the therapists, what's their discharge team look like.
Yep.
So there's so many questions that I have. Don't want to be a pain in anybody's butt, but really need to be able to give good people good information to guide them and direct them the best I can.
Yeah, it's a maze out there in terms of finding good treatment.
People go online, you could get overwhelmed for a month and not see every treatment center in America.
Really.
And forget about Europe, Central, South America, which are getting big now. Central America, they're building treatment centers all over the place. Panama's going crazy building treatment centers right now. Yeah.
So let's go back to talking about family work a little bit. How do you help families come up with a plan for themselves even? Because I know having a loved one who's struggling with addiction or even mental health issues, it's traumatic for the whole family system.
Absolutely.
How do you help the families?
From sometimes as simple and pedantic as maybe look at Family Anonymous, Al-Anon meetings, personal therapist, family therapist are some ways to begin looking at it. Family education programs that any even halfway decent treatment center offers nowadays, and also being eyes and ears for the family, resisting every effort of a client to triangulate or a parent to over-nurture or to overcompensate, or for a parent, I fire parents. I fire them and say, Mom, you're fired.
I love that. I'm stealing it.
You steal it. It's all yours. You're fired. Little Jonathan is my problem now. It's not yours anymore. And then I can help this man emerge or reemerge, whether he be 22 years old or 60 years old.
Yeah.
There's usually somebody in people's lives that are holding them back.
Yeah.
Families.
Yeah.
Principally.
Yeah, and we know underneath it all is fear and love. They're afraid that their loved one is gonna suffer, and they love them.
They can love them to death.
They can love them to death.
Yeah.
And so my next question is, that's tough, right? So how do you work with families in navigating the territory of, I need you to trust this because we need to help your loved one, and there are no guarantees?
Just like that, explaining it just like that. And what I also try to do too is I really am a strong believer in community. So I introduce parents of other successful clients that are open, if they're in the same geographic territory, to each other. And then they begin to bond. They'll go out to dinner together or have drinks or whatever they end up doing. They bond and they support each other. So I try to help the parents understand that it's just as important for them to build a community as it is for their son or their daughter or their husband or their wife.
Yeah, it's a big job.
It is, and the funny thing about it is, I would probably say of the hours I work a week, it's probably 50-50 parents and clients.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Parents take probably more than 50-50.
I would say.
Parents take a lot of the time.
Yeah. Sometimes, here at other places I've worked, but here too, with some client systems, the family is the bulk of the work.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Yeah. Billy needs a new band for his iWatch.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
No, he
His
doesn't.
band is fine. It'll make it to the
Right.
next week.
Right.
It'll be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part of your job, do you think?
It's going to sound self-ingratiating, and it's not meant to sound that way, but over-delivering to my own detriment and sometimes my own health, where I have to pull back and just I'm going off the air for a couple of days.
You mean
regroup.
Being too available, giving too much of yourself?
Having really bad boundaries. I teach people boundaries all day, and I can't do it myself very well.
Relatable. Yeah. What's your favorite part of the job?
Success. When some kid starts getting it and the lights come back on, and the family notices it, and when their peers notice it.
Yeah.
That's when when their peers notice it, that they're getting better. That's, I think, the real litmus test. And the family's not as angry anymore. And even the failures, there's some, you never want to see anybody fail, but you know it's part of the game of recovery.
It is.
Between mental illness, substance use disorder, trauma, all these things that we deal with every day,
Yeah.
you know, whether we want to or not, there are some people that slip through the crack no matter how hard you try, and you've got to turn that into a positive for the family. That's, you know, it's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
I've lost a couple of family members in the last 2 years
Yeah.
to this disease.
Sorry.
Adults.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, I've lost people and clients, and it's just, it's heartbreaking.
But we have to turn it into a positive that you don't have to be that person.
We do.
You don't.
Right. Well, it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so
We have
much.
so much more we could talk about, but we're low on time.
It's about time to go. Okay.
So
Thank you so very much. It's an absolute pleasure.
yeah, mine.